More details have been released as to why Molly Qerim abruptly quit ESPN. And when I say abruptly quit, I mean she left work, I think it was on Monday, and she never...
We gotta kick this off with the money, because in 2025 at ESPN, nothing shakes the building like a contract worth over $100 million. Stephen A. Smith, if you're keeping track, ran his price tag up so high it practically bent the company's orbit around him.
Oftentimes, when you have someone abruptly quit a job, they're not leaving on the best terms. Normally, it's polite to give your employer some kind of notice.
$20 million a year? Just let that sink in. And it's not only for hollering on First Take. He planted himself on Monday Night Football, slid into NBA Countdown, and popped up anywhere execs needed a rating surge. He's the poster on the billboard, the booming voice echoing through ESPN's halls, the non-stop engine running on overdrive. With that kind of cash and power, Stephen A. became untouchable. But right as Smith locked in his crown as ESPN's most expensive, can't-miss talent,
she was quitting right now. Both ESPN and Molly Qerim, they are trying to polish the... They're trying to make this look like an amicable divorce. And look, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Maybe they couldn't come to an agreement and they agreed to amicably part ways. I'm more interested in...
Boom. Molly Qerim suddenly dipped out the side door. No warning, no buildup. Gone in a flash. Rumors had been floating she'd leave by year's end, but then came the rug pull, an Instagram post in mid-September straight from Qerim herself. She shut the book on her decade-long run effective immediately. No farewell tour, no emotional send-off, no montage of tributes. One day she was there holding down the desk. The next day she was erased from the very set that made her a household name. For those who've been tracking, Qerim's ESPN story goes back almost 20 years. She joined in 2006, grinding on digital before moving to live shows, even snagging an Emmy on ESPN2 before stepping into the fire as First Take's host in 2015.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years.
If Stephen A. was the gas pedal, Molly was the brakes, the cool balance keeping wild debates from crashing into chaos. She held the line, kept things steady, and according to the official script, she was supposed to transition off the show quietly at year's end. But clearly, that wasn't the real story. Then, out of nowhere, she yanks the cord with zero warning. Viewers left shocked, producers scrambling just to fill the chair. This wasn't supposed to be the ending, yet the break was clean, stamped on social media before ESPN's bosses could even spin their own story. And only hours later, as if scripted, ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, rushed out, trying hard to cool down the flames. There's no controversy here, she just wants to do other things. That's the line Magnus pushed in every interview, painting Molly's exit like it was some routine contract expiration. He praised her, called her awesome, even said the network hoped to keep her in another role, claimed execs were blindsided by the timing. According to him, this was simple. 10 years is a long run. Molly wanted fresh challenges, and she was already on track to leave by year's end. Case closed. At least, that's how he wanted it to look. But the more Magnus doubled down, the less it added up. If it was so normal, why did the news leak early, catching ESPN's own top brass flat-footed?
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
Why did Molly scramble out a hasty Instagram post instead of waiting? She wasn't ready, but the whispers forced her hand. Magnus swore there was no shoe to drop. But when a network boss is this desperate to shut down rumors, you gotta wonder, what's he so scared might come out? And then came the human side of the drama. Stephen A. Smith opened First Take the next morning with what sounded like a eulogy in disguise. He called Molly a friend, praised her for lifting the show, even admitted he was heartbroken, sad, didn't even cover it. On camera, it was gratitude and nostalgia, a smooth performance. But hours later on Sirius XM, Stephen A. switched it up. He admitted Molly abruptly resigned, his words, before shutting the door on fans nosing around. Quite frankly, the details are none of your business, he said. Then added, I don't even know all the details. Still, he made sure to repeat one word over and over, abrupt. If this was just a boring contract thing, why hammer that home so hard? Why keep stressing the shock factor unless there's more to this story than anyone's willing to say? It only took a few hours for the rumor mill to explode. Insiders whispering, rivals on radio speculating, everyone asking if Stephen A. Smith knows way more than he's letting on.
Let's remember, wasn't it just last week Stephen A. was on air bragging about the people he stood up for to get paid and how many, Cam, I did it for Shannon Sharp and I did it for this person and that person. And when I look at the abrupt, I'm not coming into work tomorrow.
Yeah.
That also is maybe there's pointing a finger at Stephen A.
Emmanuel Acho, who used to work at ESPN, even called out the contradiction live. Don't tease us with details and then say you're not going to tell us the details. And he's right. Smith keeps dangling just enough to spark chaos, then slamming the door whenever it gets too close for comfort. The longer it drags on, the shadier it looks. Fans, already stung by Molly's sudden disappearance, started flooding X and Instagram with theories. Why negotiate to stay, only to leave overnight? And why is Smith, the face plastered everywhere, acting like he's out of the loop while giving emotional tributes on air? It feels like he's doing overtime to keep the real story buried. Meanwhile, behind the cameras, chaos is spilling over. Producers are scrambling, cycling through guest hosts, trying out anyone who can sit in that chair. And then, the morning Molly announces her exit, ESPN just happens to roll out press about Malika Andrews' shiny new contract. Coincidence, or proof they already had her lined up? The timing is just too perfect. Even Molly's own goodbye post left breadcrumbs. Now that the news came out earlier than I intended, and not in the way I hoped, she wrote, hinting there's way more beneath the surface.
The other thing I thought, Steve, was when you pay Stephen A. Smith $20 million, that means, okay, well, whoever his co-host is, they're going to want an exorbitant amount of money. And so she may have been making $2.5, $3 million as the host. Well, when Stephen A. is sitting there making 20, well, maybe now she wants to make 10.
She thanked fans and colleagues, then dropped a final tease. Stay tuned. That one line set social media on fire. This doesn't read like a simple contract dispute. Reports say ESPN had been offering her new roles, yet she walked away entirely. And all of this drops right as Stephen A. is locking in a $20 million a year deal, stretching his presence across NFL, NBA, every marquee event ESPN can throw at him. At the exact moment his influence peaks, his longtime co-host vanishes with no transition, no soft landing, not even a week of farewells. Just gone. Even top execs admitted on the record the timing blindsided them. That's no clean break, that's drama. As the dust settles, Stephen A. Smith drops one more breadcrumb, then smirks. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No. That single line cut sharper than any official ESPN statement. He sits there on camera with all the leverage, all the answers, but keeps the public locked out. Behind the polite tributes and corporate denials, one thing is clear. This saga is far from over. Because before Molly's seat even cooled, ESPN was already pushing a fresh headline. Malika Andrews, only 30, locked into a multi-year deal. To the public, it looked like a celebration of rising talent. But insiders knew better. This was chess, not chance. One high-profile woman gone, another unveiled with fireworks, like the network thought it could swap faces and keep rolling.
Jason, I actually watched that whole video clip of Stephen A. Smith. I just thought it was fun. It ain't none of y'all business. It was a contract negotiation. Well, so that was about the money. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for cluing us. It's always about the money, though. It's like in boxing. Why didn't this fight happen? Easy, there wasn't enough.
Instantly, whispers started. Was Andrews being groomed to slide right into First Take? The optics were impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Smith's presence just kept swallowing the network. His contract ballooned, his assignments multiplied, his face dominated every marquee event. And as his shadow stretched wider, Molly's entire two-decade career at ESPN was snuffed out overnight. Inside Bristol, the mood was tense, even as execs repeated the same tired line, "No controversy here." But from the outside, it looked less like routine business and more like a cold, calculated shakeup. The chessboard was clear. Power was being stacked in one corner, and every move looked way too precise to be random. ESPN tried spinning Malika Andrews' contract extension as a feel-good headline, but fans weren't fooled. The contrast was too sharp. One morning, Molly's gone. The next morning, a press release drops. Looked less like celebration and more like corporate damage control choreographed to perfection. Speculation turned into backlash fast. It wasn't just fans raising eyebrows. Sports media voices jumped in too. Emmanuel Acho, who knows the network inside out, went off on Mad Dog Sports Radio.
Start with Molly Qerim.
Ooh, she's out
She, yesterday when we talked, we knew that she was leaving, but we didn't know she was leaving like immediately, which is an indication that, man, this thing's a bit more complicated than just they couldn't settle on the money. It just seems more seriously. She's off the show.
He blasted Stephen A. for playing both sides, acting like he didn't know the details, while tossing out just enough hints to stir the pot. Acho broke it down like game tape. He said she abruptly resigned, that's a detail. Then he says, "Don't ask me the details, I won't tell you, and oh, I don't even know them." To Acho, Smith's sadness on air sounded more scripted than sincere. And that criticism hit a nerve, because Smith's little dance didn't just protect Molly's privacy, it protected him. If there was drama under the surface, he wanted to look loyal, but never take a hit himself. That's why the whispers kept circling. How much of Molly's exit was tied to Smith's skyrocketing power, his $20 million paycheck, and the control he flexed over casting and content?
When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up.
Mm-hmm.
And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN. Mm-hmm. And so that made me, is she going to Fox Sports?
Even before she left, fans were pointing out moments that painted a messier picture. One in particular stuck. On First Take, Stephen A. cracked a live joke about Molly snacking during commercial breaks, clowning her with a line about not being able to fast. It landed awkward, and social media lit up, replaying it as an example of how even on air, the balance of power didn't always feel equal. You can ask Molly to do a lot of things, but asking her to fast? That's a problem for her. The cameras caught her face tighten instantly. Her clapback, adult woman proud of it. Not a little girl. Hit like a gavel. It wasn't just a spicy exchange, it went viral in hours. Fans and critics slammed Stephen A. for crossing a line, twisting playful banter into disrespect. Social media lit up with outrage, threads full of people calling for discipline, accusing Smith's power of turning into arrogance. To many, this wasn't just one bad joke, it was the tip of the iceberg.
She goes to FS1 or launches her own show on YouTube. I wish Molly Qerim nothing but the best. I don't want to see her fail, but at the same time, I don't see a path to success. It is hard to build an audience by yourself. It's hard to build and sustain an audience when it's just you.
A glimpse into the daily friction of sitting beside a man treated as untouchable. Rumors spread that Molly wasn't just leaving, she was pushed, forced out by the weight of Smith's influence and ESPN's willingness to cater to his every demand. Patterns started to show. As Smith's empire grew, First Take, Monday Night Football, NBA coverage, Sports Center spots, everyone else looked more expendable. Some longtime viewers straight up said Molly walked because she saw the writing on the wall. When your co-host is the highest paid, most protected figure in sports TV, even decades of loyalty can vanish overnight. But while the spotlight fixated on boardroom drama and viral clips, another quieter truth got buried: Molly's battle with endometriosis. For years, she spoke openly about flare-ups, surgeries, and the daily grind of managing brutal pain while performing live. Fans saw a woman showing raw authenticity in an industry obsessed with perfection. Her resilience was its own story. ESPN doesn't pause for personal struggles, yet Molly powered through, hosting, moderating, keeping debates steady, even on the hardest days. And while Stephen A.'s battles played out publicly in headlines and contracts, Molly's toughest fights happened behind closed doors, in hospital rooms, or before the cameras rolled. For Molly, this wasn't just about contract talks or fending off critics online. It was about surviving a condition that drains energy, focus, and patience. And those are the very traits needed to moderate two fiery personalities every single morning. Every negotiation, every on-air clash, every demand from execs stacked on top of a baseline of pain most fans never even knew she carried. That's why her exit hit different. Walking away wasn't some simple career move. It felt personal, a reset after years of putting ESPN and the audience before herself.
A lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business, but it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her, but in the end, she made a decision.
For those who followed her journey, it read like a brave choice to take back control of her life. And when you set that against Stephen A's booming empire, his paychecks, his dominance, it became an even sharper contrast. One was growing untouchable, the other refusing to let the grind or a superstar co-host define her limits. ESPN's higher-ups tried hard to smother the fire. Burke Magnus repeated the same talking points. They wanted her to stay, they offered her other roles, and her departure came down to different visions. The spin was polished, no controversy, no drama. But outside those boardrooms, nobody was buying it. Fans and pundits kept asking the obvious. If it was also routine, why did the story leak before ESPN was ready to talk? Why did Molly's own farewell end with that cryptic, "Stay tuned"? Why did Stephen A., for all his public grief, never once address the eating joke backlash or the whispers about their off-camera tension? The silence left a giant vacuum, and fans filled it with theories of power struggles, unspoken beef, and the quiet cost of building up one megastar while others got left behind. And remember, this wasn't happening in a vacuum. ESPN, the so-called mothership of sports media, is fighting for relevance in a world of streaming wars and viral scandals. From one angle, making Stephen A. the centerpiece looks smart. Maximize your biggest draw, let him run wild. But Molly's sudden exit told a darker story. When one personality becomes untouchable, cracks start to show. Viewers saw her professionalism replaced with auditions and uncertainty. While the timing of Malika Andrews' deal only fueled suspicions, something deeper was brewing. Now, ESPN barrels forward with Smith more powerful than ever, pulling nearly $20 million a year, reshuffling the network to keep his brand untouchable. Rumors swirl that he wants to control how Molly's exit is remembered, or maybe even bring her back on his terms. Meanwhile, fans and insiders are convinced her hand was forced, whether by Smith's sway, ESPN's star-first culture, or just exhaustion from pushing against the current. So here's the cliffhanger. Are we watching the coronation of a sports media king, or the unraveling of a morning show empire built on unchecked power, ego, and money? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Molly pushed out or just ready to walk? However it plays out, one thing's guaranteed. The next move in Stephen A's kingdom is going to be one for the history books. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next headline.